On my 68th birthday, a package showed up at my front door, and my husband Frank went pale. "Ruth, don't open it. Call 911 now." The box was shifting on our welcome mat, with tiny air holes punched along the sides, and something inside was scratching, squeaking, trying to get out. But when the police opened it, what they found wasn't just disturbing. It was the moment I realized my own children weren't my family anymore. On my 68th birthday, I woke up to sunlight spilling across the kitchen floor and the soft, familiar sound of Frank humming while he made coffee. It should have been a peaceful morning. The kind where you blow out candles later, laugh at the same old stories, and pretend time isn't moving faster than you want it to. But something in Frank's voice was off. Not worried exactly. More like alert. Like a man who hears a strange sound in the house at night and doesn't want to scare you, but already has one hand on the flashlight. He set a mug in front of me and kissed my forehead. "Happy birthday, Ruth." "Thank you," I smiled. And for a moment, I let myself believe the day could still be normal. Frank and I had only been married 4 years, but he'd made our small house feel warm again after I spent so long thinking warmth was over for me. After my first husband died, I told myself I'd had my love story. That was it, the last chapter. Then Frank moved in next door after his divorce, and somehow my life started again in the simplest way, watering tomatoes, swapping movie recommendations, laughing at the same jokes. He didn't replace what I lost. He added something new. And that's what my children never forgave. Frank checked his watch. "I'm going to run to the grocery store before it gets crowded. We need eggs and those little pastries you like." "Don't spoil me," I teased. "I plan to spoil you forever," he said, and grabbed his keys. He was halfway to the door when the doorbell rang. We looked at each other. Neither of us was expecting anyone. My kids rarely came by unless they wanted something, and lately, something usually meant money or guilt. Frank opened the door halfway, peered out, and frowned. "There's a package," he said. "A package." I wiped my hands on a towel and walked over. From the doorway, I could see a medium-sized cardboard box sitting right on our welcome mat. No wrapping, no birthday ribbon, just plain brown cardboard. But even from where I stood, something didn't feel right. Frank didn't reach for it. He just stood there staring. "Frank," I asked. His voice came out low and tight. "Ruth, don't open it." I blinked. "What?" He didn't look away. "Can't you see?" I leaned forward, squinting. That's when I noticed them. Small holes punched along the sides. Not one or two. Dozens. Like someone went around the box with a pencil and stabbed it again and again. Then the box shifted. Just slightly. And then again. Something moved inside. A scratching sound, a squeak, something tiny and frantic. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd missed a step on the stairs. I stepped back without thinking. My hands started shaking. Frank stayed still, like his body had turned into a wall. "Call the police," he said. His voice was deadly calm, which scared me even more. "Right now." I stared at him. "Frank, it could be, maybe it's just a..." "It's not," he said sharply, then softer, "Ruth, please call." I don't know what I expected in that moment. A joke, a misunderstanding, a neighbor's pet. But deep down I already knew. Nobody sends a moving box with air holes to someone's door unless they want to frighten them. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and dialed 911. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin and shaky, like it belonged to someone else. "Yes, hello, there's a package on my porch, it's moving. My husband thinks we should." The dispatcher asked for our address. Frank didn't move. He watched the box like it might explode or bite. The dispatcher told us to stay back and wait for an officer. When I hung up, the house felt too quiet. Even Frank's coffee smelled wrong. I hugged my arms around myself. Frank, who would do this? He finally looked at me. His eyes were steady, but his jaw was clenched so tight I could see it twitch. I have an idea, he said. And the worst part, I didn't need him to say names. Because the names were already lining up in my head, like suspects in a lineup. And Lisa, the one who always smiled with her mouth, never her eyes. 10 minutes later, a police car rolled up. Officer Martinez stepped out, one hand resting near his belt. He was youngish, maybe late 30s, but his face had that tired look of someone who'd seen more ugliness than he ever expected. He walked up the driveway, took one look at the box, and his expression changed. He didn't lean in close. He didn't poke it. He didn't touch it. He just pulled out his radio. "I'm going to need backup," he said. Then he glanced at Frank. "Sir, ma'am, I need you inside, away from the door." Frank nodded and guided me back, like I was made of glass. From the window, we watched as Officer Martinez kept his distance, eyes fixed on the shifting box. A few minutes later, another car arrived. Then another. And then, when I saw the truck with Animal Control printed on the side, I felt cold all over. Animal Control. This wasn't a neighborhood prank. This wasn't a birthday surprise. This was something planned. Something deliberate. Something meant to send a message. Frank didn't say a word. But he didn't need to. I could feel the anger coming off him like heat. Animal control officers approached carefully, carrying a thick plastic carrier. One of them crouched near the box and listened. Scratching again, faster now. Like whatever was inside had been trapped too long. Officer Martinez looked back at us through the window and gave a slow, serious nod. Then they opened it. I didn't see everything clearly from inside. But I saw enough. A quick movement. Small bodies. A flash of tails. 6 rats. 6. Terrified and scrambling, crowded together like they'd been thrown in there without care. They didn't look like cute little pet store rats. They looked desperate. They looked angry. They looked like fear made alive. Animal Control scooped them into the carrier quickly and shut it tight. But that wasn't the worst part. Because after the rats were removed, Officer Martinez reached into the box again and pulled out something flat. A piece of paper. A note. He read it. And his face hardened. He didn't look shocked. He looked like someone who just confirmed the thing he'd been hopping wasn't true. Then he walked up to our front door and knocked. Frank opened it, keeping the chain on. Officer Martinez held the note up so we could read. My hands began to shake again, harder this time. Because the note wasn't just cruel. It was personal. It said, "Happy birthday to the rat who chose strangers over family. Time to clean house. Your loving children." My stomach turned. My vision blurred. It felt like someone had slapped me across the face and then smiled while doing it. Frank read it over my shoulder. His face went white. Not pale white. Like all the blood drained out of him at once. That's when I knew. This wasn't some sick joke. This was war. Officer Martinez exhaled slowly. "Mrs. Hayes, this isn't a prank. This is criminal intimidation. It may also involve animal cruelty." I grabbed the edge of the doorframe just to stay standing. "My children," I whispered, like my mouth didn't want to form the words. Frank's voice came out low, controlled. "Officer, I need to show you something." I turned to him. "Frank." He walked past me and reached into a kitchen drawer. And what he pulled out made me freeze. A thick folder. Not a thin one. Not a few pages. A stack. He handed it to Officer Martinez with the calm seriousness of a man delivering evidence at a trial. I've been documenting incidents, Frank said, for 3 months. Officer Martinez flipped through the pages. I stared at the folder like it was a stranger in my own kitchen. Documenting, I repeated. Frank didn't look at me right away. After threatened you. My throat tightened, threatened me. Frank turned then, eyes locked on mine. Ruth, he said softly, I told you that wasn't just frustration. That was a warning. The memories hit me like a chain of lights, turning on all at once. Slamming his fist on my table. Leaning in too close, voice low and dangerous. You better be careful, Mom. Frank's not going to be around forever to protect you. At the time, I told myself he was just angry. Just stressed. Just my son. But standing there with a note calling me a rat, with police in my driveway, with animal control hauling away frightened animals my children had trapped. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Officer Martinez's eyes moved over the paperwork. Dates. Times. Descriptions. Screenshots. Printed messages. Mr. Hayes, he said, this is thorough. Frank nodded. I'm an engineer. When something starts failing, you don't wait for the collapse. Officer Martinez looked up. Do you have recordings too? Frank reached into his pocket and held up his phone. I do. My heart stuttered. Frank, you've been recording them. He didn't sound proud. He sounded tired. Ruth, I didn't want to, but I had a feeling it was going to get worse. Officer Martinez held out his hand. Can I hear the most recent one? Frank hesitated for half a second, then pressed play. And suddenly, my kitchen filled with my son's voice. Slurred. Mean. Confident in his cruelty. Mom, you need to get rid of Frank. This whole marriage thing has gone on long enough. My skin crawled. It wasn't just hearing say it. It was hearing how easy it sounded. Like he was ordering a pizza. Like he was discussing a broken appliance. Not a human being. Not my husband. Not my happiness. His voice continued through the phone speaker. Lisa and agree with me. We've been discussing it, and Frank's got to go. Frank paused the recording. Officer Martinez looked at me. I couldn't speak. I felt like I was underwater. Like everything around me was muffled, except the sound of my own heartbeat. Officer Martinez flipped another page in the folder. He frowned. This also suggests financial exploitation, he said. Financial, I repeated stupidly. Frank's voice was quieter now. Ruth, I found out something else. I turned slowly. And even before he said it, I saw it in his eyes. The same expression I used to see on parents' faces when they realized their child wasn't just going through a phase. It was the look of someone accepting a hard truth. Been telling people around town that you're not well, Frank said carefully. What? My voice cracked. He's been hinting that you're confused, that you're forgetting things, that you might have dementia. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair. Why would he say that? Frank's jaw clenched. Because if he convinces enough people you're incompetent, he can try to control your finances, your house, your decisions. Officer Martinez nodded grimly. This can fall under elder abuse and financial exploitation. I stared at them both. My son. My daughter. My daughter-in-law. My family. Plotting like strangers. Planning like enemies. Using my age like a weapon. Using my love like a weakness. And then sending me a box of rats to make sure I felt fear on my birthday. Fear, shame, disgust, humiliation. It hit me then, sharp and clean. This wasn't about Frank. Not really. Frank was just the wall standing between them and what they thought they deserved. My money. My house. My control. Officer Martinez closed the folder carefully. Mrs. Hayes, what we have here is escalation, and your husband did the thing possible by documenting it. I swallowed hard. What happens now? Officer Martinez looked at me with something I hadn't felt from my children in years. Respect. Now, he said, we start building a case that makes it impossible for them to keep doing this. Frank's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed once, steady, grounding. And in that squeeze, I felt something shift inside me. For months, I'd been sad. Confused. Trying to fix things. Trying to keep peace. Trying to pretend my grown children were still the kids I raised. But as I pictured that box on my welcome mat, the holes punched into it like someone had taken time to be cruel. Sadness drained away. And something else rose up in its place. Something hot. Something focused. Something I hadn't allowed myself to feel because mothers shouldn't feel that way about their children. But I wasn't just a mother. I was Ruth Hayes. And before I was anyone's mom, I was someone who spent decades dealing with bullies, children and adults, who thought they could intimidate their way into getting what they wanted. I looked at Frank. Then at the folder. Then at Officer Martinez's badge. And I realized this wasn't going to end with me crying in the bathroom and pretending everything was okay. This was going to end with consequences. Real ones. Because the moment my children chose terror over respect, they stopped being family drama and became a threat. Officer Martinez stood. I'll be in touch. We'll need statements, more evidence, and we'll likely pursue restraining orders. Frank nodded. Whatever you need. After he left, the house felt quiet again. But it wasn't the same quiet as before. This quiet was heavy. Like the air before a storm. Frank sat across from me at the kitchen table. He stared at the spot where the note had been. Then he looked up. Ruth, he said softly, I need you to promise me something. I blinked. What? No more answering their calls alone, he said. No more giving money. No more letting them guilt you into meetings. I swallowed. Frank. He leaned forward, eyes intense. They sent you rats today, Ruth. On your birthday, they wrote it down, they signed it. I closed my eyes. He was right. The line had been crossed. And once people cross a line like that, they don't stop unless you stop them. I opened my eyes again. Okay, I whispered. Frank exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. And then my phone buzzed on the table. A text message. From Mom, I heard the police were at your house. Are you okay? I stared at the screen, feeling that old instinct to reply quickly, to smooth it over, to protect her feelings. Then I looked at Frank. He didn't speak. He just turned his phone over, recording app already open. Like he knew. Like he'd been waiting. My thumb hovered over the screen. And in that moment, I understood something that made my stomach tight all over again. Wasn't checking on me. She was checking how much I knew. Because whatever came next. This box was only the beginning. And my children were about to make their next move. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom, please answer, said something happened. Frank watched my face and I could tell he was trying not to show how angry he was, but his jaw was tight, his shoulders were stiff. He didn't trust my children. And after what arrived on my porch, I finally understood why. I placed the phone face down, on the table like it was something dirty. Frank's recording app was still open. He didn't say, I told you so. He didn't even look smug. He just looked tired. like a man who had been holding a door shut with his back for months, and the people pushing from the other side weren't strangers. They were my blood. Do you want me to answer? I asked quietly. Frank didn't jump in, he didn't command. He just said, if you do, do it on speaker, and don't let them steer the conversation. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. My fingers shook as I flipped the phone back over and hit call. It rang once. Twice. Answered like she'd been waiting with the phone in her hand. Mom, her voice was syrupy sweet, almost breathless with concern. Oh, thank God. I heard police cars were there, are you okay? I stared at the wall in front of me, as if it could hold me steady. I'm fine, I said. Oh, honey, she sighed. I was so worried, said something about a package. Frank's eyes flicked to mine. I took a slow breath. Yes, I said calmly. A package arrived, it was interesting. Made a small fake laugh. Interesting, what was it? The audacity of it almost made me dizzy. Like she hadn't already known. Like she wasn't fishing. I glanced at Frank and saw him lift his phone slightly, making sure the recording was clear. I forced myself to keep my voice steady. It was a box, I said, with air holes. Silence. Just for a beat. Then spoke again, softer now. Air holes, why would? Because something was alive inside, I said. Her breath caught. I leaned forward, keeping my tone level like I used to in parent meetings when the truth was about to land. There were 6 rats, I continued, and a note. Let out a small sound, half gasp, half choke. Oh my God, she whispered. Mom, that's who would do something like that. Frank's eyebrows lifted. Here we go. I didn't answer her question, I just said, the note said, Happy birthday to the rat who chose strangers over family. Time to clean house, your loving children. Another long silence. Then's voice came back, but it sounded different now. Not sweet. Not warm. Careful. Mom, that's horrible, that's really horrible. I could almost picture her face. That wide-eyed innocence she used to do as a teenager when she got caught sneaking out. I said slowly, I'm going to give you one chance to be honest with me. Her voice tightened. What do you mean? I mean, I said, did you have anything to do with this? She made a small helpless sound. Mom, no, of course not, why would you even ask me that? And there it was. The wounded tone. The victim act. It used to work on me, every time. I used to fall over myself trying to soothe her. But today, something in me had changed. Because, I said, Officer Martinez came, animal control came, they collected evidence, and I have reasons to believe planned it. Inhaled sharply. Mom, you can't, he would never. I cut in gently, I'm not accusing, I'm asking. Her voice went colder. Mom, you sound confused. My stomach dropped. Not because I believed her. Because I recognized the tactic instantly. The same one Frank warned me about. The same one he said was laying groundwork for. Continued, slow and deliberate, like she was speaking to a child. Maybe you should call doctor, she said. You know, just to get checked. You've been through a lot, and stress can make people imagine things. I sat back like she'd slapped me without touching me. Frank's hand slammed softly on the table, controlled anger. I spoke quietly into the phone. I see. Rushed in, like she realized she'd stepped too far. Mom, I'm not saying you're crazy, I'm just saying you've been different lately, ever since Frank. There it was. Frank. Always Frank. Like my happiness was a disease he'd infected me with. I kept my voice calm, even though my heart was pounding. I said, Frank is sitting right here, and everything you're saying is being recorded. Silence again. Then a sharp inhale. You're recording me, she hissed. Frank leaned closer to the speaker, voice even and polite. He said, After threatened Ruth, I started documenting interactions. In this state, one-party consent applies. Recording is legal. His voice trembled, anger, fear, or both. This is insane, she snapped. You're turning her against us. Frank didn't raise his voice. You did that yourselves, he said. Sweetness returned suddenly like a mask, snapping back into place. Mom, she pleaded, please don't do anything dramatic. Been stressed. Lisa's been stressed. We're all just scared for you. Scared for me? Right. I closed my eyes. I could hear my own voice from years ago in my principal's office. When people lose control, they pretend their cruelty is concern. I opened my eyes and looked at Frank. He nodded once, like he was handing the choice back to me. I leaned into the phone. Hear what's going to happen, I said. Froze, Mom. You and Lisa have 24 hours, I continued. You can either contact the police yourselves, tell the truth, and apologize, or you can wait for them to come to you. His voice went high. Apologize for what? We didn't. I said quietly, don't insult me by lying badly. Her breath came fast now. Mom, you can't take your own children to court, she said, voice cracking. Do you understand what that would do to the family? I let out a slow breath. I understand what sending rats to my porch did to the family, I said. Then I lowered my voice to something calm and final. I spent my career teaching entitled people that actions have consequences, I said. The lesson plan hasn't changed just because I retired. I ended the call. My hands were shaking again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something sharp. Frank stared at me like he was seeing me clearly for the first time. Ruth Hayes, he said slowly, remind me never to get on your bad side. I didn't smile. Because my phone started ringing immediately. Frank glanced at the screen, then at me. Let it ring, I said. Frank's eyebrows lifted. You sure? Yes, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Step 2 is boundaries. The phone kept buzzing like an angry insect. Then it stopped. A second later, a text came through. Open the door, we need to talk. My stomach tightened. Frank stood and moved toward the window, peeking through the blinds. His face hardened. They're here, he said. My mouth went dry. Who? He didn't look away from the window. He said, and Lisa and all three. Standing on my porch like a team. Like a pack. Like they'd come to finish what they started. Frank looked back at me. Ruth, he said quietly, whatever happens next, don't forget, we're not guessing anymore. I swallowed. Outside, pounded on the door hard enough to make the frame rattle. Mom, he shouted, open up. Frank raised his phone again. Recording. And as I stared at the door, chain lock hanging there like the thin line between safety and chaos, one thought cut through my fear. They didn't come to apologize. They came because they thought I would fold. And if I did, they were going to show me just how cruel family could be. Slammed his fist against the door again. Mom, we know you're in there. The wood rattled in its frame, and I felt the vibration in my bones. Frank stood slightly behind me, one hand raised with his phone recording, the other hovering near my shoulder like he was ready to steady me if my knees gave out. But my knees didn't give out. Not this time. I reached for the chain lock and slid it into place. Then I opened the door a few inches, just enough to see them clearly, but not enough to let them push their way in. Stood closest, shoulders tense, face flushed. He had that familiar look I'd seen too many times lately, half rage, half panic. Behind him, pressed her lips together like she was holding back tears. And Lisa stood with her purse clutched to her chest, eyes darting around like she was calculating angles. They didn't look like concerned family. They looked like people who'd come to control a situation. Hello, I said calmly. Rushed forward first, voice trembling with fake sweetness. Mom, oh my God, are you okay? We heard police were here and we. Cut her off. Enough, he snapped. Then he leaned closer to the crack in the door. Mom, take the chain off. We need to talk like adults. Frank shifted slightly. I could feel him bristle. I kept my face neutral. We are talking. His eyes flicked past me, searching the inside of the house. Is he here? He demanded. Frank lives here, I said, so yes. Lisa stepped forward, and her voice came out dripping with that soft, sugary concern that always made my skin crawl. Ruth, honey, we're worried, she said. Truly, said you accused us of sending you some kind of package. Her eyebrows lifted, like she couldn't even imagine such a thing. I stared at her. For years, I'd watched Lisa play this game, pretending she was kind while quietly poisoning the room with whispers and little smirks. Today, I didn't have energy for her acting. That's right, I said. 6 rats, a note, signed your loving children. Gasped dramatically, pressing her hand to her chest. Rats, she squeaked. Mom, that's horrible. Why would anyone? Lisa cut in smoothly. Ruth, are you sure you're remembering correctly? Sometimes stress can make things seem. There it was. The incompetence angle. Right on time. My jaw tightened, but my voice stayed calm. Interesting, I said, because credit card was used to purchase 6 rats yesterday afternoon. His face went white so fast it was almost comical. What? He blurted. That's insane, I didn't. Oh, I said lightly, and there's also security footage. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Lisa grabbed his arm, hard. His eyes widened, darting between us. For the first time, the 3 of them looked less like a team, and more like people realizing the floor beneath them wasn't solid anymore. Recovered first, rage rising to cover panic. You're spying on me now, he snapped. You and your husband, recording my calls, tracking my card. Frank's voice came from behind me, steady as a judge. He said, we didn't track anything, the police did, and yes, your call was recorded, legally. His eyes burned when he saw Frank. You, he hissed, you're turning my mother into some paranoid. I'm protecting my wife, Frank said, calm and flat, something you seem incapable of doing. Stepped forward like she was trying to break up a fight. Mom, she pleaded, please, can we just come inside? The kids are in the car. Amy and Tyler are asking why Grandma isn't answering. I held up my hand. No, I said simply. Blinked no. No, I repeated. You don't get to use my as a key to unlock my door. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Ruth, this is getting out of hand, she said. We're concerned about your mental state, ever since. Ever since Frank, I finished for her. Lisa's lips pressed together. Leaned closer, voice dropping low. Mom, take the chain off, he said. This is ridiculous, we're your children. I looked straight at him. And for 1 second, I saw the little boy he used to be. The boy who scraped his knee and ran into my arms. Then I saw what he had become. A grown man standing on my porch, trying to intimidate me. No, I said again. His nostrils flared. Fine, he said, then we'll do this out here. He turned to, and Lisa like a commander giving orders. Tell her, he said. His eyes filled with tears instantly, like she'd prepared them. Mom, she sobbed, you used to care about us. You used to help. You used to be there when we needed you, and now you're acting like we're strangers. I didn't answer. Lisa stepped in next, voice soft. She's isolated, Lisa said, shaking her head like she was sad. Frank's isolating you. That's what abusers do, Ruth. They separate you from your real family. Frank let out a short, humorless laugh. His voice rose. Exactly, he's poisoning your mind. You don't even recognize what's happening. You're embarrassing us, Mom. Getting at your age, people talk. I stared at. People talk, I repeated. Yes, he snapped. And they're right, this whole old age romance thing is pathetic. Frank's shoulders went rigid, but he didn't move. I did. I leaned forward until my face was closer to the crack in the door. I said quietly, "You sent live rats to my house." His eyes flashed. It was. Lisa hissed his name under her breath like a warning, but was already too angry to stop. It was supposed to be a wake-up call, he barked. You've been acting like some teenager, running off with the new guy, forgetting your responsibilities. My stomach turned. My responsibilities, I repeated. To your family, cried. I stared at her. To your bills, you mean? Sobbing froze. She blinked rapidly, like she wasn't prepared for me to say it out loud. Pointed at me through the crack. You used to help us, he said, voice sharp. You used to care, now all you care about is Frank. And by help, I said, you mean money. Lisa's mouth tightened. His cheeks flushed deep red. Don't act like we're criminals, he snapped. We're trying to protect you. By terrorizing me, I asked. By calling me a rat, by threatening me on the phone. His eyes went dark. Then he leaned in, and the mask dropped completely. You better think very carefully about how you want this to end, he said slowly, because we can make your life very difficult. Frank's phone lifted slightly higher, recording every word. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. Are you threatening me again? I asked. His lips curled. I'm warning you, he said. Frank won't be around forever. There it was. The same line. The plan hidden inside the threat. Frank spoke calmly. And that threat, he said, is now documented too. Glared at him. Suddenly snapped, anger breaking through her tears. You're ruining everything, she yelled. You're choosing him over us. Lisa stepped forward, voice trembling with rage. If you do this, she hissed, we'll tell everyone Frank brainwashed you, we'll ruin your reputation. I stared at her. Years of my career flashed in my mind, angry parents, courtroom threats, smear campaigns. I'd heard it all before. And I'd beaten it all before. You're welcome to try, I said softly. Slammed his fist against the doorframe. This isn't over, he snarled. Blood always wins. Frank's voice turned colder. Get off our property, he said. Now. For a moment, I thought might lunge, might try to force the door. But Lisa grabbed his sleeve again, pulling him back. Wiped her face hard, eyes blazing. They backed away slowly, like wolves retreating, but not surrendering. As they walked down the steps, turned and shouted over his shoulder. You'll regret this, Mom. And then they were gone. Frank closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and turned to me. I was shaking. But not from fear. From fury. Frank wrapped an arm around me. Are you okay? He asked softly. I stared at the door like I could still see their faces through it. They just did it, I whispered. Did what? They gave us everything, I said, voice sharp now. Threats, admissions, manipulation, witnesses, all recorded. Frank studied me for a second, then something like pride flickered in his eyes. You're in principal mode, he said quietly. I took a deep breath. Yes, I said. Because my children thought they were dealing with a weak old woman. But they'd forgotten who I was before I was Mom. And they just walked onto my porch and performed the entire case for us, like they couldn't imagine consequences were real. I looked at Frank. Tomorrow, I said, we file restraining orders. Frank nodded, and if they contact you again. I picked up my phone, steady now. Then they make their next mistake, I said. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared of rats or loud knocking. I didn't sleep because I kept replaying their faces on my porch. Rage. Fake tears turning into real anger the moment guilt didn't work. Lisa's cold smile, while she suggested I was confused. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about losing control. Frank sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open, organizing files like he was building a bridge. Dates, times, screenshots, recordings. He labeled everything with calm precision. Ruth, he said gently, come look at this. I sat beside him and stared at the screen. He'd created folders: threats, money requests, harassment, social media smears, in-person incidents. It looked like a case file. It looked like something you'd see in a courtroom. And it hit me again, harder than before, that I wasn't dealing with hurt feelings. I was dealing with a pattern. A campaign. A plan. Frank slid his phone across the table. You should record a statement in your own words, he said, while it's fresh. I nodded slowly. My voice came out calm when I hit record, which surprised me. My name is Ruth Hayes, I said. I am 68 years old. Today my children Hayes and my daughter-in-law Lisa Hayes sent a package to my home containing 6 live rats and a note signed Your loving children. This followed months of threats, harassment, and financial manipulation. Frank watched me speak like he was watching steel cool into shape. When I finished, I exhaled. And for the first time since the box arrived, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not grief. Not confusion. Clarity. The next morning, Officer Martinez called. Mrs. Hayes, he said, I have updates. Frank turned the speaker on. Officer Martinez's voice was firm, professional. We traced the rat purchase to pet store downtown. Hayes bought them yesterday afternoon using his credit card. I closed my eyes. Of course it was. But hearing it confirmed, hearing it spoken out loud like a fact, made something in me snap into place. Officer Martinez continued. The store clerk remembers him clearly. He asked for the biggest, most aggressive ones. He requested a shipping box instead of a proper carrier. Frank shook his head slowly, like he couldn't believe how careless was. There's more, the officer said. The store has security footage of the transaction. He appears intoxicated and made statements about teaching someone a lesson. My stomach tightened. What kind of statements? I asked. Officer Martinez paused, then said carefully. We have him on video saying, my mom thinks she can replace her family, so now she gets to live with rats. My throat burned. Frank's hand found mine and squeezed. Officer Martinez continued. We also contacted the delivery service, paid extra for specific timing. He requested the package be delivered at 10 a.m. when your husband would normally be out. Frank's eyes darkened. He knew that routine, he really did. Officer Martinez's voice lowered. The driver remembers emphasizing that the recipient would be old and easily scared. For a moment, the room went silent except for the hum of our fridge. Then I spoke, and my voice sounded like someone else. Officer Martinez, I said, that's premeditation. Yes, ma'am, he replied. We're proceeding with restraining orders, and based on the evidence, we're also looking at harassment, criminal intimidation, animal cruelty violations, and potential elder abuse charges. When the call ended, I sat very still. Frank studied me. What are you thinking? I looked up. I'm thinking, I said, they expected me to crumble. They thought embarrassment would keep me quiet. Frank nodded, and they were wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom, we need to talk. Frank is poisoning you. Then Lisa. Ruth, your call yesterday sounded confused. We're worried. Maybe you need help. Then Mom, the kids are asking why you won't answer. You're hurting them. Frank read over my shoulder. They're flooding you, he said. Classic pressure tactic. I stared at the screen. You know what's worse, I said quietly. They're doing it like they're the victims. Frank nodded, because they still think they can control the story. Before I could answer, there was a loud sound outside. A heavy thud. Then another. Frank stood and looked through the blinds. His face hardened. "'S back," he said. My heart kicked, but I didn't panic this time. I stood, walked to the door, and checked the chain. His voice boomed through the wood. "Mom, open up. We need to settle this like adults." Frank raised his phone and started recording again. I opened the door with the chain on. His face was red, his eyes wild. And Lisa stood behind him again, like backup. "Mom," started, tears already forming. "Please." "No," I said, cutting through her. They froze. Blinked like he didn't understand. "What do you mean no?" he snapped. "I mean," I said calmly, "you don't come here demanding anything anymore." His jaw clenched. "Mom, don't do this." Lisa stepped forward with that fake softness. "Ruth, honey, you're making a mistake," she said. "Families work things out privately. You don't involve police." I held up my phone. "Smile," I said. "You're being recorded." His tears disappeared instantly. His eyes narrowed. "You think you're tough now," he sneered, "because your little husband is playing detective." Frank stepped into view beside me. He said, voice cold, "You sent live rats to terrorize my wife." Threw up his hands like he was the one being attacked. "It was a wake-up call," he snapped. "She needed to remember who her real family is." I stared at him, my voice quiet. "And your real goal was money." The vase twitched. Burst out, voice sharp. "You used to help us," she shouted. "You used to care about our problems. And when I stopped funding your chaos," I said, "you punished me." Lisa's face twisted. "We're not punishing you," she hissed. "We're trying to save you." "By calling me confused?" I asked. "By telling people I have dementia?" Froze. Just for a second. And that second told me everything. Frank lifted his phone slightly higher. "Say that again," Frank said softly. "On camera." His mouth tightened. Stepped forward, desperate now. "Mom, please," she pleaded. "Think about Amy and Tyler." I looked at her. Then I spoke slowly, like I was giving a lesson to a classroom. "Using children as weapons is abuse," I said, "and I won't reward it." His voice dropped low again, menacing. "You better think carefully," he said, "because Frank won't be around forever." Frank didn't move. He simply said, "And that threat is now documented in person, in front of witnesses." His face twisted with fury. "You know what?" he spat. "Maybe Dad was lucky he didn't live long enough to see what you became." The words hit like a punch. For a split second, my vision blurred. Frank stepped forward, instinctively protective. But I raised my hand. "No," I said quietly. And to my surprise, my voice didn't shake. "Because I finally understood something." Said that to break me. To make me feel so guilty I'd surrender. But guilt only works when you still believe the other person is good. I looked at through the crack in the door. "I know exactly what I became," I said. "I became someone who finally stopped letting my children mistreat me." Stared. Looked like she might scream. Lisa's eyes narrowed in hatred. And in that moment, I saw it. They weren't sorry. They were shocked. Shocked that I wasn't folding. Shocked that I wasn't begging them to forgive me for making them angry. Shocked that consequences were real. Frank's voice was low, final. "Get off our property," he said. "Now." Lisa grabbed sleeve. "Come on," she hissed. Looked at me one last time, eyes hard. "This isn't over," she said. Back down the steps, pointing at me like I'd betrayed him. "You'll regret this," he snarled. Then they left. Frank closed the door. Locked it. And turned to me. I stood very still for a moment. Then I exhaled. Frank searched my face. Ruth, are you okay? I looked at him, and I realized I was. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. But because I had crossed a line inside myself. The line where I stopped hoping they'd change. And started protecting my life. I picked up Officer Martinez's card from the counter. Tomorrow, I said, we file. Frank nodded. And after that, he asked. I stared at the door, thinking about the welcome mat, the box, the note. Then I looked at Frank. After that, I said softly, we live in peace, and they live with what they did. Frank wrapped his arms around me. Outside, the morning sun warmed our porch like nothing happened. But everything had happened. My children tried to terrorize me into obedience. Instead, they reminded me who I was. A woman who spent decades making consequences stick. A woman who knew that love without respect isn't love. It's control. And on my 68th birthday, I finally stopped being controlled.